So Super Rugby round 19, the Saturday games, the final games in the regular season of Super Rugby, all done and dusted. Is it just me, or did we have a pretty good round of games here for the most part? I mean, obviously in the scheme of things, it was a pretty disappointing one for the Aussies, but I thought overall, yeah, pretty good watch. The first one, Highlanders Rebels. Rebels fighting for their lives in this one. A win would have seen them deny the Sharks a spot in the playoffs, and it would have secured their own position. They led this one for about 65 minutes. They, Hodge got 3 tries, Murphy got 1, but in the end, the Highlanders, Naholo, Hamilton, Walden, Lee, Pleasant State, and Franklin all went in for tries. So the Rebels really went hard in the first half. Lots of quick defense and just trying to keep the ball alive as long as possible. But I noticed by the end of the first half they were looking a bit gassed, and I think that kind of told towards the end of the game as the Highlanders kind of caught them up. But yeah, Hodge tried his best, scoring 3 tries to get the Rebels over the line. He kicked like a champion. His kicking's not always been that great this season. But yeah, it just wasn't enough. It was a cracking game. I mean, right up until the last minute, the Rebels could have snuck a win, but not able to get it done. Their scrum was solid, and some of the Highlanders sub looked pretty good. Naholo looked really good. Like I said, grandstanding finish. But yeah, Highlanders just too good. And yeah, it left the door open for the Sharks, which would later bite them. So good on the Rebels for putting in a big fight. Like I said, they led for 65 minutes after a pretty helter-skelter kind of game. Ruru got yellow carded, and that cost them as well. 14 points they conceded during that yellow card, although Fainga played pretty well as a scrum half, as a backup. But yeah, that was pretty costly in the end. Highlanders can't be giving them a man advantage when they're at home. So yeah, just too good, 43-37. Still, Rebels fans can look back at a season where they've gone from last to almost in the playoffs. But also, I mean, if you're looking at the glass half empty side, after a blistering start to the season, they kind of let the playoffs slip through their fingers. So either way you look at it, there's positives and negatives there, but it's definitely an improvement from last year. Next one, Crusaders Blues. Well, I said it was a good round of rugby, but this one was just embarrassing. Crusaders ended up giving the Blues a bit of a hiding. 19-5 at half-time. Blues not within touching distance, but also not being blown away. Same kind of story as for the Blues. They're against New Zealand teams. They're in it for about 60-65 minutes. And then they just get run off the park, which was the case here with a whole bunch of late tries, 63, 72, 76, 79. All these minutes had tries from the Crusaders, lots of them. 2 to Goodhue, 3 to Bridge, 1 to Tamanivalu, Whitelock and Hall. The Blues 2 to Nanai, and a penalty try at scrum time. That doesn't get done to the Crusaders very often. But I guess that's the Crusaders without their All Black front row, which won't be the same case next week. So yeah, I mean, the Blues always look good on kind of paper. They had plenty of possession and territory, but it's just they don't do much with it. The Crusaders' defense is just amazingly solid, and they're just able to stifle the Blues. I mean, there was one point the Blues went 21 phases, got turned over by the Crusaders. 5-minute line-out, the Crusaders won the ball at the line-out. 5-minute line-out, they knocked the ball on at the line-out. So it's just poor execution, and then too classy from the Crusaders. Crusaders are a quality outfit. You look at the final stats, Crusaders tackling 86%, which is pretty admirable. Blues 75, can't be having that. Crusaders 20 offloads to the Blues 6. Crusaders 24 clean breaks to the Blues 9. 661 run meters to the Crusaders, 396 for the Blues. It's just... Yeah, I mean, the commentators go on about, oh yeah, the Blues played well in patches. Yeah, most teams who are the lesser team can do well for a part of the game, but then it's the end of the game that matters, and that's where the Blues get shown up. Just not good enough. Embarrassing. Poor. Yeah, I mean it gets a bit much when you every week hear the commentators saying, "Oh yeah, the Blues, they look alright. They did some good things." No, they don't. It's 80-minute game, man. If you can't play for 80 minutes, ain't gonna get very far. So yeah, 54-17, great result for the Crusaders without some of their big players. Although apparently Reed and Crotty picked up knocks, so it'll be interesting to see if they're available for next week. I mean, obviously Crusaders got lots of depth, but obviously you want your best players playing. Crusaders will take on the Sharks next week in Christchurch. Blues finish 14th. Should have said Rebels finished 9th. And the Highlanders will travel to Sydney to play the Waratahs. Speaking of the Waratahs, they've gone down to the Brumbies 31 points to 40. So another side that kind of let down the Aussies. The Rebels losing was a bit of a letdown. And the Waratahs giving the Lions the opportunity to jump them for that second spot on the conference table. Also a bit of letdown for the Aussies. So yeah, Brumbies, who were on a great run at the end of the season. If the Brumbies had been playing like this all season, they would have done a lot better. 31 points to 40. For the Waratahs, Fitzpatrick Nairovoro, who finishes top try scorer for the regular season. Miller and Wilkin. Miller's one was amazing. He's got good pace for a number 7. For the Brumbies, Banks, Richie Arnold, Nasarani, Muirhead, who's had also a great end to the season. Godwin as well has been much improved. And Talioli. So, yeah. Didn't actually see all of this game. I saw most of the first half and then the highlights of the second. The stats are pretty even overall. Yellow card to the Brumbies. It seems to happen a fair bit to them this season. But also the Tars have one in the second half, so that kind of evens things out. Tars just seemed a bit careless with things like passing, lineouts, just not on their game as what they have been in recent weeks. Brumbies definitely improved. Dan McKellar seems to be doing a pretty good job. Getting the team to play the way he wants. It's taken a fair bit of the season. I suppose that's to be expected for a new coach, but kind of like the Reds, they seem to be on a good trajectory at the moment. So whilst we've only got one Australian Conference team in the playoffs, both the Brumbies and the Reds finished the season with a bit of good form. So that's encouraging looking to the future. For the Waratahs, just drop that ball, man. And They look vulnerable with chips over Falau, so that'll be one that the Highlanders will be looking to with interest, because a couple of times that got some good pay for the Brumbies. Just Godwin's try was a good little chip over Falau, and there was another one, but interesting result. Brumbies obviously didn't have anything to play for, given that the Rebels got a bonus point in that first game, but they still came out firing, so credit to them. They finished the season in 10th, which is pretty credible, seeing as they started the season in not the best of form. The Waratahs dropped down to 3rd because Lions took down the Bulls 38 points to 12. This one was a really fascinating start. It was really helter-skelter. Libok scored a scintillating try, just carved up straight through the lines. Creel then scored one with a pretty sweet little dummy. And the Bulls weren't looking to kick anything. They were just running everything at the Lions. And it kind of makes sense because the Lions are a really dangerous team with ball in hand. But defensively, they've not been that great this season, so it kind of made sense. But once, the Bulls had a 12-0 lead. But once the Lions started getting some ball, it quickly kind of turned the other way around. Man, their maul and their scrum look really dangerous. They're good at the breakdown, although Van Staden was pretty good at the breakdown for the Bulls as well. They turned down points a lot of times, the Lions, and they hadn't really pulled away until they got a penalty try in like the 62nd minute. So for a lot of dominance they had, they weren't quite able to penetrate, but they did, similar to the Crusaders in that game, kind of, not to the same degree, but they pushed away with it towards the end. Deante's try at the end was a real fingertip one, so maybe the scoreline even out a bit further. But yeah, overall, I thought it was a pretty entertaining game. TMO was a very busy man in this one. Had lots of referrals to make. It was a bit stop-start at the end. Lots of scrums and resets and things like that, which was a bit disappointing given that the game started at a real entertaining pace. But overall, I looked at the stats. Lions' tackling percentage is still only 73%, which is not great. going into the finals. That defence has been the issue all season and continues to be so against the team which finished bottom in the end of the South African Conference. Bulls were at 87, despite the fact that, they had the penalty count was 14-6, so the Bulls were just really struggling. Like I said, scrum and maul time was being pretty costly. Breakdown as well, when Marks, Cocker-Smith and other guys got over the ball, they were just able to force penalties. So, yeah. Great result, though, for the Lions, because they jump over the Waratahs into second spot. Means they potentially book themselves another week at home if they can get through the first game. So, yeah, we'll see what happens with them. And, yeah, like I said, the Bulls, unfortunately for them, finished on the same points as the Stormers, but still one spot below on the table. And the last one, Sharks against the Jaguares. The Sharks, pretty wet game. There didn't seem to be that much of a crowd, but if you looked at the stadiums and the stands, people were hunkered down wherever there was shelter, so they were kind of hidden away from the main areas where the cameras focused. But, yeah, it seemed pretty wet. I thought, given that it was a do-or-die game and that the first result had kind of gone the Sharks' way, there might have been more people turning out, but yeah, it did look pretty miserable. There were a lot of handling errors in this game that goes with the weather. Jaguares had played their B team. Rebels had lost, so everything was in the Sharks' favour here. They got the job done. 20 points to 10 is kind of the low-scoring game of the round, but as I said, conditions were pretty poor. Tries to Van der Merwe, which was another great one from him. He's really got some gas. And Van Wyk, Cancellieri for the Jaguares. Jaguares still had a lot of possession in territory, like 67%, 69% for possession in territory. Just not able to penetrate. Sharks tackling 88%. Made 159 tackles. Very defensively solid, and that's something they're going to need going forward next week when they take on the Crusaders. Jaguares, on the other hand, perhaps getting back to their early season woes where tackling was a big problem, 71%. So they only made 52 tackles, which is not even a third of what the Sharks made. And they dropped off quite a few. So penalty count was also getting a bit higher. So that'll be a bit concerning for the Jaguares the last couple of weeks. They've slipped back into some old bad habits. But as I said, they didn't play their big guns in this game. They were holding them back. And it turns out rightly so, given that the Lions won their game. There was no way that the Jaguares were going to jump top spot in South Africa. So yeah, the Sharks capitalised. Esterhuizen had a pretty good game, set up one of the tries. As I said, Van der Merwe has been really impressive all season. And yeah, the Sharks as a unit overall look pretty good, but they're going to have to be really on form next week. One good thing is they have been very good against New Zealand teams this year. So if there's a team to do it, no disrespect to the Rebels, but I feel like perhaps the Sharks have got a better shot. The only disadvantage is the Rebels wouldn't have had that much travel to do. Now the Sharks have got to fly over from South Africa. If there's one thing about all these quarterfinal matchups now that we've all seen them decided, the Jaguares are already in South Africa when they go to Joburg. The Highlanders end up only having to go across the ditch to Sydney. The Sharks have got that bit of travel when they go to Christchurch, and then there's the Chiefs and Hurricanes, both in New Zealand. So travel-wise, for the most part, apart from the Sharks, it worked out pretty well. So, yeah, generally I thought it was a pretty good round of games. I was pretty pleased with them. What did you guys think of the games? I wasn't pleased with the Blues, obviously. They are just atrocious. But apart from that, everything was pretty pleasing. Good for South Africa overall. South African rugby is the winner on the day. 2 South African teams make the finals, and 3 from the South African Conference. As I said, the Aussies kind of the losers on this one, with only the Waratahs making it and then dropping that second spot. But kind of on the plus side, the 2 teams next out of the playoffs are the Rebels and the Brumbies. So they're not that far away. So yeah, I guess kind of that's the bright side if there is one. But yeah, what did you guys think of the round? And I'll talk to you again for final power rankings tomorrow. Alright guys, I'll talk to you again soon. See ya.